Welcome to the More Perfect Union, the podcast that offers real debate without the hate. I'm Kevin Kelton, here with Rebecca Kushmider, DJ McGuire, and Greg Matusak. Hi, gang.
Hey, Kevin.
We're dancing on camera. The podcast is an audio medium, so no one can see our terrible dancing.
I was going to say we're dancing very well.
Absolutely.
We are dancing in the streets.
I have dance moves made for
like the streets of
media.
New York are being showered with money, and we are dancing. We're making it rain in New York with the money and the penalties and the pay up Trump. This is a dance party.
So we're going to get to talking about the Trump cases, plural, this week, and other things in the news. But let's talk first about the sad news that the world learned yesterday that Alexi Navalny passed away in a Russian prison. What can you say except this, in my mind, is all the more reason not to turn Putin into a piece of folklore, a hero to the right wing. Rebecca, what would you say about this?
I was just listening to Michael McFaul on Alex Wagner's show. The one thing he wanted to make very clear is that this was a murder and Vladimir Putin is responsible. And if you are a Donald Trump supporter who keeps spouting off phrases about, well, he doesn't have to put up with opposition. He can fight back. He can punch back. This is where this leads. Alexei Navalny is a citizen, or was, of Russia. And now he is a dead man because he criticized and opposed the strongman leader. And if that's what you want in America, I'm so sorry that you have reached that point of depravity.
Well said. DJ?
What does Alexei Navalny and the Republican Party have in common? Neither of them have a functioning soul. This week, Mr. Navalny departed this life in a Siberian prison. His crime, opposing Vladimir Putin's regime and opposing his war in Ukraine. The Republican Party, by contrast, has sold its soul to Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump, to the point where we can now say the GOP has two daddies. It is a painful reality, but it is a reality nonetheless. And we have to adjust, and we have to react. The House is now in recess for a couple of weeks. They'll come back at the 28th. The Democrats should make it clear what their priorities are. Funding for Ukraine's effort to defend itself should be put in every single continuing resolution. Make sure Speaker Mike Johnson and the rest of the Kremlin caucus and the Dacha of Representatives understand that if they are so determined to bend the knee to Vladimir Putin, one of the requirements will be shutting down the government. Let them say that appeasing the Kremlin is so important that they would rather the government cease all function. That is the bluff we now have to call. It's not easy being the party of national security. I know my fellow Democrats will flinch at that. It's no fun. But that is where we are. And we now have to act accordingly.
Yeah, what's amazing is we didn't find out about this sooner through the Tucker Carlson Live in Russia or Live in Moscow reports. And I say that jokingly, and I know this is a serious subject, but Tucker Carlson has been putting out these reports on the Twitter about how great Moscow is and how clean it is and how wonderful Putin is. And it's just this horrible propaganda. And it's funny that it hasn't stopped. At no point has he put out, hey, by the way, he just killed his opposition, and maybe we should put a pause on this propaganda machine that I've been putting out. Most of it's been lies or slanted or just terrible in some way. I mean, it's laughable.
But you could almost be certain that he's getting paid to say all this stuff.
Without a doubt.
He's making a lot of money, and he's not going to put a pause on a paycheck because the guy's unemployed and trying to operate a mainstream television show off of Twitter.
Well said. Well said. So let's turn to slightly more upbeat notes. Donald Trump is out around somewhere between 450 and 550 million if you tally them all together. So this week, of course, the New York State verdict came down. Everybody now knows that he lost big. Again, I'll go to you first, Greg. What are your thoughts?
So my inbox and my phone has been blowing up about this, and all my friends on the conservative side have been saying, but this was a victimless crime. He didn't hurt anybody, but he did.
So is illegal immigration.
So is illegal immigration. So are seatbelt laws. So are drug laws.
Let me build on that thought, because I was going to make the same point. What people don't understand is attempted murder, if you don't kill the person, is a victimless crime. A crime nonetheless.
It's a crime,
okay,
but I didn't go through with it.
Okay. If I call up you, Greg, and I say, hey, you live in Ohio, I live in California, I have someone here that I would like you to wipe out, okay, and I'll pay you $10,000, okay, and you never act upon it. No one got hurt. Still a crime.
Did you pay me for it, though?
No, and so it's two crimes, because I
right.
Yeah.
That's even worse.
And also, you're a deadbeat.
You're a
Well,
deadbeat.
the thing they're saying it's a victimless crime. It's actually not.
It's not.
Because if Donald Trump had honestly assessed his net worth and the value of his properties, he would have been charged a higher interest rate on those loans, and that money would have gone back into the banking system, where it could have been loaned to other business operators and other individuals. So he essentially was stiffing the bank, who was then unable to use those profits in the way that banking should have. He cheated unnamed, unidentifiable people, but there was a cheat there.
And also, he had an unfair competitive business advantage because other companies and other real estate developers did not have access to those funds at those rates, because he got a sweetheart deal, because he lied about his assets. So he had unfair profits based on an unfair competitive advantage. That's a crime as well. Greg?
Yeah, and you're right. But what if he didn't? What if something went bad and he, let's say, went bankrupt? I mean, which I'm told is like a habit of his.
Wait, you're telling me Donald Trump could go bankrupt?
Well,
What?
I mean, some of his businesses, like Trump Steaks or Trump University,
all of his casinos,
or all of his casinos, which we haven't even talked
How do you
out.
lose money on casinos?
I know. Like, did he take loans out for his casinos? Have we even looked into that?
The other thing that about the Trump verdict is, in terms of raising that money, if he has to take out loans, the interest rates are so high now that could bankrupt him. If this had happened 4 years ago, when interest rates were 3 or 4%, it would have been a very different thing. He's going to have to pay 5, 6, 7% now, and that may just destroy him.
Well, you can tell that was a plot by Biden to raise the interest rates.
Yes,
of course.
No, the Fed started raising interest rates specifically for us, but he's
because they saw this coming.
Yeah. Oh, good, totally. Yeah. And Taylor Swift told them what to do exactly. This is as she planned it.
The other thing that I got the sense, this is just a sense, but I really felt it in watching the coverage yesterday. The other way I think this is going to hurt him in a more nebulous, quantifiable way, but I do think it's happening. Trump fatigue is starting to hit. Trump fatigue is starting to set in bigly. And I think, he's going to be in courtrooms now. We know he's going to be in a courtroom from March until April and into May. And I think he'll be in another courtroom before the end of this election season. And every time he gets this kind of coverage and he comes out and he makes his stupid ass statements, that's the only way I can say it, Trump fatigue is going to get more and more set in. And I think by November, people will not want to go through another 4 years of Donald Trump as the president and commander-in-chief.
And meanwhile, the Hunter Biden case is just falling apart.
Pieces.
I mean, like embarrassingly so. It was as if it was made out of like tissue paper. The indictment was made out of tissue paper, and they decided the only thing that could make this stronger is let's take it out in the sprinkler. I mean, and they're like, well, I think we made a mistake.
Taylor Swift had Donald Trump get convicted to distract us all from the fact that Hunter Biden didn't do anything wrong.
Oh my goodness.
I think is that the conspiracy? Did I do that right?
I just want to say that discussing all of these cases with you guys has been my spa treatment for the week.
Well, I highly recommend the Ritz-Carlton in Georgetown if you ever want a special occasion spa experience. And if you would like to sponsor us, Ritz-Carlton, give me a call.
Did you guys hear about this kerfuffle that's been happening in the news between Larry David and Elmo and Will Wheaton, the actor? Apparently, Elmo went on Twitter, or obviously the Sesame Street people put Elmo on Twitter, saying, how's everybody doing? And then there was this giant response of people that were bearing their souls to Elmo. And so in response, they had Elmo on the Today Show, and also on was Larry David. And well, do you guys know what happened next?
Yes, but please go on.
So Larry David got a little annoyed that Elmo, I guess, was eating into his time or was delaying his interview, or he just felt he was annoying. So he comedically went over and kind of roughed up Elmo comedically. He's Larry David. He does things that he thinks are funny. And it kind of shocked everybody. And now this became a whole cause celeb. So Will Wheaton, the actor, took to social media to call Larry David on the carpet for this. And it became Larry David versus Will Wheaton. And I'm wondering, Greg, did you hear about any of this?
Yeah, I did. Granted, you kind of tipped me off to it. But one, I love how you refer to Larry David as someone who does things that he finds funny. Because I have several uncles at Thanksgiving like that. You know, like I know he thinks he's funny when he says that.
Well,
but that's
Greg.
That's awesome. I am going to use that. Like, you're just like Larry David. That's what I'm going to call it. What I'm going to say to them when they say stuff, and the whole room is silent. So that's awesome. One, two. Okay. In all seriousness, I do kind of agree. No, I do agree with Will Wheaton. I mean, it's a child. It's for children. It's Sesame Street. And to see and he was quick with it. I mean, he ran over and he started jostling him. And there are reasons that we have trigger warnings. And, when you have a large man attacking us, and yes, it's a Muppet. Yes, I get it. But I mean, it's for children who would be watching that, like, oh, hey, that could be pretty scary. I get that. And that could be like, why is the crazy uncle, attacking Elmo?
And why isn't he attacking his fictional wife's real husband?
You mean Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
Yeah. So, I
made DJ laugh.
I think we're in a time where we are more sensitive to traumas and to things like that, and we should be. We should be more aware of these things. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially when we're dealing with children. So,
well, Greg, there's a specific reason that I put this into the rundown this week, and it's just for you.
Is it because have you attacked a small monster or
more than once, and they've
Okay.
attacked me back? But it's because, well, as you well know, I personally know Larry David.
I know,
which is one of the reasons why I could say he thinks. I mean, I'm a big fan of Larry's. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of Larry's. But knowing
And
him in the real world,
he thinks is funny, and Kevin thinks are funny.
he can sometimes do things that we might think are funny that the general public might not think are funny.
Right.
But the other reason I had to bring this up, Greg, is because I also know Will Wheaton.
No,
And
that's right, you do.
I played hockey with him.
Oh,
And I just had to do that because Greg hates it when I name drop.
Oh my gosh. It's not at this point not name dropping, you're just name throwing at me at this point. You're just gosh.
and I'm gonna say, in one way, I'm Team Larry David because I always was annoyed by Elmo, and I was really glad that my kids liked Kermit the Frog better. But I'm also Team Will Wheaton because, there's a time and a place to beat up Elmo, and the Today Show is neither the time nor the place.
And if you are going up against Will Wheaton, you've pretty much already lost, because going up against Will Wheaton means going up against Star Trek Nation. And I'm sorry, Larry, but there are a lot more people who watch Star Trek than who have watched Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, and
that's
the
just
Venn
the way
diagram
it is.
of those two shows is circles on opposite sides of the page.
That too.
There's really no overlap
That too.
between those two things. I mean, but it in some ways it makes perfect sense. Larry David, he's a curmudgeon. He is, barreling through life, making jokes about things that are not always funny, but totally are when he gets his hands on them. And Will Wheaton is an advocate for being a little kinder and a little gentler and a little about caring for yourself and others. And for them to clash over Elmo is, I mean, kind of amazing.
And this is something, and Kevin, maybe you can speak to this a little more. This is something I have never understood about so many who work in comedy, particularly folks who work in comedy. We'll just go with that. And everybody takes a joke one step too far in life. We all do it. Mm-hmm. Most of us, when we realize we've taken a step too far, we kind of look around, we take the step back, we say, sorry, oops, my bad, I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. Larry, and for some reason so many other people in comedy, seem determined to double down on it. They seem to think that because they think it's funny, the rest of us may think it's funny. And I don't understand why people who work in comedy seem oblivious, and this is just my observation because I'm outside that world, but they just seem oblivious to the concept of taking the joke one step too far and then taking a step back. Kevin, is there a reason why to the rest of us it seems like no one inside that world seems to get that?
Yes, there is. I'm not sure I can articulate it. It's really psychological. And, you're putting me in the position to speak for Larry David and the rest of the luminaries of the comedy world that I am nowhere near their stature. But since you asked me, when you're in the comedy business, and especially when you're a performer and you're quite successful at it, you have to commit. You have to commit fully to it. You have to believe in yourself fully, just like a football player has to believe he's the best person on that field. And a boxer, when he gets into the ring, has to believe he's the champion of the world. And their job is to take things to the limit. And they feel that you don't get to decide where the line is. They get to decide where the line is. And if you think they went over the line, A, they probably did their job well. And B, that's your problem. In the comedy clubs, we used to say you have 3 ways to vote. You can vote with your laughs, you can vote by staying silent, and you can vote by leaving. That's it. You don't get to edit our act. You don't get to tell us what the content of our acts should be. Now, I'm speaking again, of course, in the realm of stand-up comedy. Again, I can't say, first of all, Larry did apologize. Then the next time he was interviewed on it, I think on Seth Meyers, he kind of pulled back and said he would do it again. I think he was joking when he said that. We could go into a whole diatribe about when people are in character trying to make an audience laugh versus what their hearts tell them. But DJ, the short answer is because they don't believe that they're wrong.
All right, I got a question then. Since you have personal knowledge of both these gentlemen, right?
Well, only Will as a hockey player.
Well, that's fine.
Very nice guy.
then we'll have to go there. Who's a better skater, and who would you pick if you were playing on like a 4 defensive, like a 4-5 one man in the penalty box?
Well, Will was the goalie, but I think
Will Wheaton. That's the
question.
Winner of this fight, obviously. Obviously, Will Wheaton, better skater, better human being.
Well, I mean, I think I'm going to harken back. Do you guys remember the movie The Aristocrats?
Of course.
Yeah, about the dirtiest joke ever told. And I think that that movie illuminates something about the stand-up mindset, about, what's happening in the back rooms and taking the joke to the absolute limits and comics egging each other on with that. And I think that there is probably a blurring of the line between your industry audience and your Today Show audience, where everybody is cracking up over Bob Saget's completely profane rendition of the Aristocrats joke in that movie, but that wouldn't fly on the set of Full House. And Gilbert Gottfried, when he made the 9/11 joke that went too far, so he launched into the aristocrats joke at a Friars Club roast. I think it's just, you don't always know, and some people are more stubborn than others, and so they do double down. And it may not be anything as well thought out as what Kevin said.
Yeah, I mean, let's remember, Larry David was on a television show. He's known, his comic persona is about being a curmudgeon who does terribly socially unacceptable things. He was there to promote Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is about, a classic comedic curmudgeon. And to him, it's like, I went over and I was shaking a puppet. He didn't see it as symbolic of like domestic abuse. He saw it as a silly comedy thing. I'm not sure he was wrong. I'm not defending him, but we're trying to get into that mindset. And maybe now, if he were here, he'd probably say, you know what? Yeah, I probably did go too far. Let's not get too crazy about this, But
let's also remember, Larry David is the guy who met his future spouse at a dinner party, made her laugh a few times, and thought, wow, I'm doing really well. So he just got up and left the entire dinner party.
I didn't know that story.
Yeah, he felt like he had impressed her as much as he could, and rather than ruin it, he left.
And I also think a part of this, what we will see over the next 2 or 3 weeks, either this kind of dies down and we move on to something else, or it gets sucked into the culture war vortex that got J.K. Rowling and Louis C.K. and God knows how many other people. One of two things is going to happen. 75 to 80% probability that it just kind of dies off and we don't pay all that much attention. We almost forget what happened. But there is a non-zero probability that this ends up with Larry David headlining a Trump rally in 6 months.
No, there's a zero probability of that.
Do you remember what he said? Do you remember the story about him running into Dershowitz? He ran into Dershowitz at a grocery store, and Alan Dershowitz tried to be nice to him, and Larry David's like, no, I don't want to talk to you. He's like, what? We can still be friends. He's like, no, we can't. You're disgusting.
Right.
That's literally the word he used to Alan Dershowitz to his face in a grocery store on Martha's Vineyard.
There's a great episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where his character has decided he doesn't want to interact with people, so he wears a Donald Trump MAGA hat.
Yes.
It's actually a pretty funny bit because he realizes that by wearing something that's pretty repugnant to like a normal person, people would just avoid you. And I am like, oh my gosh, if I saw someone with a MAGA hat, I would, we always like sit as far away as possible. We don't want to hear some of the things. And maybe it's not the best thing, but yeah, it's it's true. It's a really funny episode. It's a good bit he does.
Yeah, if this doesn't float up into the ether, it'll become a plot of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Right. And for the record, in that episode,
that's what there's a non-zero chance of.
In that episode, he didn't attack one childhood icon, so I felt really good about that. So the
MAGA hat episode.
Yeah.
No.
He's pretty good. I mean, he's got a good record of not attacking. I mean, he's only done one, so
yeah. He's not like David Obey who punched a nun.
Yeah. Now on the other side, I have played craps. No, I played roulette with Flavor Flav of Public Enemy in Las Vegas too. This is my day to name drop.
It really is. That's really outstanding.
I don't know if there are any The Bear fans here in the Hulu series, but they're cleaning up in the Golden Globes.
I heard Weird Al Yankovic won tons of Emmys or something.
Like tons of everything. They should just give Weird Al Yankovic
TV show, his movie.
Oh, the one with Daniel Radcliffe?
Yeah, like it won like 12.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah,
and for Daniel Radcliffe, Daniel Radcliffe's had like the most enviable acting career. He finished playing Harry Potter. He's got total financial security, and he's just picked the weirdest fucking scripts he could find.
Yeah. Some of them
including
I really
Merrily
enjoy.
We Roll Along, which is a piece of shit.
Yeah. Some of them I really like, and some of them I'm like, yep, you can do whatever you want, man.
Yeah, no, I mean it's not going to hurt him.
Nope.
What's I think he's financing half these things. Like, I'm going to do this weird ass script.
Yeah. Did you see the thing he did with John Hamm? Diary of a Young Doctor?
No,
haven't seen it.
there were only 3 episodes. I think it was for PBS, and it was John Hamm played the older Doctor, and he played the younger version of John Hamm.
Oh.
And it was set in like 1911 in Russia, and this Soviet well, I guess it wasn't Soviet at that point, but this Russian doctor had just graduated from the academy and was sent off to like the far ends of the world to pay off his debt to the country.
Oh my God. So it's like Northern Exposure.
Yeah. So that's the young doctor, but then they show the old doctor back in Moscow, and he's got lots of money, he's successful, and he's talking about his time and the difference, and he's become a lush, and he's become a drunk though. Like he's totally corrupt. And before he was like, and it's what got him there. It's brilliant. John Hamm, I think, is
he's fantastic.
He's fantastic in everything.
No, and I just heard that Northern Exposure is streaming on one of the services. So if you need to go back and rewatch that series.
Have you ever been to the town?
Yes.
In
Washington.
Outside. Yeah. I've gone there like 2 or 3 times.
No, I went there and like I have a picture somewhere, but it's like a print photo of me standing in front of the wall. Yeah. It's so funny. I didn't think anybody else had ever been there.
My wife and I have gone to the Twin Peaks, where Twin Peaks was filmed. It's like one of our favorite.
That's like in Idaho, isn't it?
No, it's like 10 minutes from there.
Oh, that's so funny.
You know, Rebecca, I have one beef with you, which is that I'm much poorer because of you. Do you know why?
Because Jessica reads everything I tell her to read.
Yes.
And I take full responsibility for that.
Books come to my door. I'm sure this is true at your house too, but books come to my door almost every day.
Yeah.
I would be so honored if you would read one of my books, really. And probably the one that you would like. Well, if you like dark satire, you might like Super Vows. If you want something that's
actually,
just more
I probably would like Super Vows. Have you read? I probably have recommended this to Jessica. I don't know if I have to you. It was a book called The Marriage Act. Imagining a Britain. I can send you a link. It's imagining like taking covenant marriage to the next level. It was an interesting.
Yeah, please send me the link. I'd like to just at least be familiar with that book. Yeah.
It was just a fun book to read. But this is not high quality. Like people, I read a lot. One of my hallmarks in life, but I don't read anything good. Like I read books with murder or wizards or wizards who commit murders, wizards who solve murders, things like that.
Isn't it something that we are coming to the end of the show and we did not even talk about the Mayorkas impeachment?
I know.
Speaking of comedy, that was amazing. Oh, okay. So anecdote, my son is taking AP Gov, and I know someone who has known and worked with Ale Mayorkas for years and years, and that person's son is a good friend of my son's. So I was like, well, the guy that they tried to impeach is your friend's dad's boss. And my son got really concerned for a second. He was like, oh, this is like corruption? Is this gonna affect my friend's family? I'm like, oh, no. No, there's no corruption. There's no reason to impeach him. It certainly won't reflect badly on anybody else. But that's nice that you still have faith in our system, that people are only impeached for a cause.
I know, right? And now, you turn on C-SPAN, it's like watching a bad Netflix horror series.
Oh, see, I keep watching the House of Representatives because it's really fun to watch my representative, Jamie Raskin, annoy Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's the best comedy on television. Sorry, Larry David.
Rebecca, I think I've known you for like 6 years now. And listen, I don't want to embarrass you, but you're a terrific writer. You've got a wonderful marriage to a loving husband. You've got 2 amazing kids. You own a horse. You've got this great life in Maryland. But I've got to tell you something. To be honest, I have never been jealous of you until you just mentioned that your representative is Jamie Raskin.
Yeah, I'm stuck with Jen Kiggins.
Now I'm massively jealous of you.
There's a documentary about Jamie Raskin called Love and the Constitution. And one day, one of my neighbors comes up to me. He's like, I saw you on MSNBC last night. I'm like, what? And he was watching this documentary about Jamie Raskin. And there is a scene where Jamie Raskin is in my grocery store and he's talking to me. And I remembered,
Wow.
he was there. There was a food bank running a food drive there. And the executive director of the food bank is my neighbor, Jackie. And I had stopped to say hi to Jackie, and and Jamie was there, helping out with the food drive for a couple of hours for the PR of it. And Jackie's like, "Oh, have you met our Congressman Jamie Raskin?" I'm like, "Oh, nice to meet you." And I shook his hand and we took a selfie, and we both looked terrible because I'd just come from a gym and it was, his old hair. And that was that. And I did not realize there was a film crew there, and they were filming for this documentary about Jamie. And that's B-roll in the film.
Awesome.
Is me talking to Jamie Raskin in a giant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, everyone in Montgomery County has a Jamie Raskin story. Like
wow.
all of us have met him. He was in the Labor Day parade in my neighborhood this year, handing out pocket constitutions and telling kids, he's like, "This has all the good amendments, like the 14th.
Well, that beats my Will Wheaton
Nice.
story hands down.
It
Not at
really
all.
doesn't, because if you combined the forces of Jamie Raskin and Will Wheaton, it would be like some sort of
Yes.
Transformers.
It would be an Oppenheimer kind of a thing.
Yeah, like an Optimus Prime kind of thing, or yeah.
This reminds me of like during the Trump years where we would just be so okay. Trump said this now, and then Trump said this. Oh, Trump said Nikki Haley's husband is like missing and is like a deadbeat. Where is this guy? We didn't even get to talk about that this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
and the answer is he's deployed.
You're right.
he's deployed,
Yeah.
and I just feel like it's every day. There's just so much, and I'll make notes. I've got a book that I carry for work, and I make notes like, okay, make sure. And you guys have already written it down, or you guys saw this, and I was like, okay. And someone said, you must have to pay attention to everything. You listen to these newscasts. They're like, you must make millions of dollars off this podcast.
Yes.
I said, and my response was, I would if Rebecca didn't piss off Taco Bell so much.
I know it's my fault. Sorry.
I think the thing that has always driven me bonkers,
Yeah,
is how many people do not understand how little effort it takes to be a politically active citizen.
Right.
I mean, I go overboard. I know I go overboard. All right, I get that.
Don't say, dude.
Yeah, but looking over newspaper websites for a half an hour or an hour. We all call it doom scrolling, but going to threads and looking at what headline or news stories have popped up. It doesn't take a whole lot of time out of your day. And I guess I don't understand why so many people are either just so intimidated by the idea of doing anything besides just voting on the general election day, or even doing that, or on the flip side, thinking that it's not something that they have to do. It's as if people think that they're entitled to just the democracy around them without taking part in strengthening it and helping it grow.
Democracy.
I have never understood that, and I don't know what I'm missing.
And in this day and age, it is so easy. You set up breaking news alerts on your phone for 2 news outlets.
Right.
And it's coming straight to you. It's, it's boom. Oh, look, there we go. We got the Ukraine funding. Great. And you don't even have to read beyond the headline. The headline usually tells you the top 3 facts. Not that I advise not reading beyond the headline. I think you should read more, but
pick one or two stories a day for a deeper dive.
Yeah.
It's
or you could be like me and spend most of this past week listening to legal analysis podcasts to fully understand the implications of immunity and ballot access and what comes next, and learning how to spell certiorari.
An annual subscription to The Atlantic costs less money than half the streaming services that the average person forgot they have.
Yeah, but then they'll forget they have a subscription to The Atlantic.
exactly.
Okay. Well, with that. We want to thank everybody for listening to this special potluck episode. We'll be back next week with another live episode. If you like what we do here, as we always ask, please share our link on your Facebook timeline so your friends can discover us as well. And now we take you home with our theme song, Educators After Dark, which was composed by the late and very great Alan Keeney. Here's an extended clip of his song so you can enjoy his incredible talent.